The Senate map heavily favored Republicans this election cycle, so it came as little surprise when Democrats lost the majority in the upper chamber. In fact, just tonight, Democratic Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania officially conceded his race. But with Republicans also winning the White House and retaining control of the House of Representatives, there's been a lot of talk within the Democratic Party about what went wrong and what it should do to win back voters. Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio is one of the incumbents who came up short this year and has argued the party needs to do more to champion the issues of the working class. I spoke with him earlier today. Senator Sherrod Brown, welcome to the NewsHour. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I got to ask you about your election loss because it really calcified for a lot of people that the Democratic Party had lost working Americans as a core part of their base. And it's surprising in your case because you have spent your entire career talking about working families and serving working Americans. It's been a central theme for you, even as your state drifted red. So why do you think that message in Ohio, why did it fail to resonate with voters this time around?
Well, it did resonate. I ran way ahead of the national ticket. I ran 7 or 8 points ahead of the national ticket. But it's been a slow migration away from the Democratic Party of American workers, starting with NAFTA. Since then, Democrats don't talk enough about workers, don't put workers at the center of what we should be doing. And my career has been working to do that. In my post-career, whatever it is, my post-Senate career will continue to do that. How do we make the Democratic Party the party of workers again? Because we've, not entirely, but we've much lost that.
But in your state, people know you. It's a central theme for you, and it still wasn't a winning message. So do you feel like you lost this time because of Bernie Moreno, your opponent, or because you're a Democrat?
Well, I lost mostly because I was a Democrat. Not really judging him, but they spent $220 million against me. That was literally 20 times what Mike DeWine spent as a senator in 2006 when I beat him. So it's a huge cascading of money in. The ads they ran about transgender and immigration were proven to be lies. The last 2 weeks, Donald Trump got on TV in their ads saying a vote for Sherrod Brown is a vote against Donald Trump. So when the top of the ticket, I'm not whining here, but when the top of the ticket wins, top of my ticket loses by 12 points, it's awfully hard to overcome that. But it just tells me that the Democratic Party over the last 30 years, the reputation of the party as a whole is that betray is too wrong, is too strong a word, but I still hear people in the Miami Valley, Dayton and Youngstown and the Mahoning Valley still talk about NAFTA. I grew up in Mansfield, Ohio, where I went to school with the sons and daughters. Name of my junior high was Johnny Appleseed Junior High, with the sons and daughters of machinists and electricians and steel workers and auto workers and rubber workers. And those jobs first went south because corporate leaders are always willing to seek cheaper wages, especially in non-union states. And then politicians of both parties sold out those workers by passing these trade agreements that caused a huge cascading of jobs overseas. And these communities, these workers did nothing wrong. They were productive. They carried union cards. Their lives were mostly middle class, and those days are gone. I mean, we've seen in the last 30 years, we've seen profits go up. We've seen executive compensation skyrocket. We've seen the stock market go up, and we've seen wages flat.
But you're saying they blame Democrats for this. Voters look at those trends and blame your party.
It's not entirely clear, but frankly, the voters expect Republicans to be corporate, to look out for their rich friends. But Democrats, we didn't expect that with Democrats. The voters expect Democrats to stand with workers. And when you don't, the disappointment is such that people move away.
Let me ask you, because I know you and other Senate Democrats met with Harris campaign officials on Capitol Hill today. My understanding is the first time since the election, and that meeting included the campaign chair, Jen O'Malley Dillon. What can you tell us about what those conversations were?
Well, I don't talk about private meetings like that. So
was that a meeting that Senate Democrats had requested, or that the campaign?
I have no idea. It's a regular lunch. They came in. I didn't even know they were coming. I mean, I think the leader announced it, I never ever talk about what happens in the Democratic caucus. I know you as media people often find out. because I have colleagues that talk too much, and I'm not one of them in this case.
Can you give us a sense of if this was more of a listening session or a venting session for Senate
Telling
Democrats?
you all I'm going to tell you. Sorry. Let's go on. Let's try another one.
Okay.
You're a good reporter and a good interviewer, but sorry.
Not that good, apparently.
No, you're pretty good.
Well, look, we know the conversations for many Democrats I talk to, people say those conversations about what happened, what went wrong need to unfold, that people need to take time and figure this out. But on the timeline of it, how do you look at that? Because House Democrats need to figure out what kind of stance they're going to be taking with the incoming majority, Republicans in the House, right? The midterms aren't that far off. So how do you look at this period of autopsy, of figuring out what went wrong?
Well, the mistake that perhaps journalists, certainly politicians make is that that politics is left to right, liberal and conservative. For me, it's whose side are you on? And it means standing up for pensions. We passed one of the things we've done the last 4 years is save the pensions of 100,000 workers. We've capped the price of insulin at $35. We passed a major bill that 1 million veterans have benefited from that were exposed to those football field-sized burn pits, named after an Ohioan. We just look at inflation. I mean, Connie and I often usually go to the grocery store after church, and
Connie, your wife.
Connie, my wife. And
yes.
when we're walking down the aisle, one of the aisles, or we're at the meat counter or at the checkout line, people talk to me about inflation. I mean, they know who I am. They talk about inflation, and the answer most of the time is that you're paying those higher prices. You're paying because of corporate profits, because of stock buybacks, because of executive compensation, and we've got to make that clear. That I've built my whole career taking on interest groups, taking on the drug companies, holding Wall Street accountable. That's what the voters respond to. It also happens to be the right position in government to take them on. But again, look at stock prices way up in the last 30 years. The profits way up, executive compensation way up, wages flat. There's a reason for that, and that is too many politicians, almost all Republicans and a number of Democrats, have played too cozy with these special interests, period. And so when Connie and I made the decision 2+ years ago to run for re-election, I knew they were going to spend a lot of money because they want to beat people like me that stand up to the drug companies want to beat us, the tobacco companies, the companies that outsource jobs, Wall Street. They don't want people like me in office. I understand that. That's why they spend that money. I beat them in the past, and I'll beat them one way or another the next time.
We know in this election the economy mattered. We also know that the incumbent played a role and lingering frustration with the Biden administration. You've had a few weeks to reflect now, and I wonder if you think, should President Biden have run for that second term in the first place?
I'm not going to talk about, I don't want to look back and do that critique. It gets us nowhere. I want to look to the future.
But this is clearly a conversation Democrats are having right now.
There's no way to fix it if he made a mistake. I was one of 4 senators to call for him to step aside. I wish he had done it earlier, but I'm not going to do that kind of biopsy, or what's not a biopsy? What
autopsy?
Autopsy. But I don't think that serves a purpose. What does serve a purpose is Democrats have to sharpen our message. Whose side are you on? Not left or right, not the Democrats got too liberal or too conservative or the Republicans are too far right. Whose side are you on? Whose side are you on when you take on the drug companies, when you take on Wall Street, when you take on the companies that outsource jobs, period.
So as you look forward now for the future of the Democratic Party, there is a sense of frustration I've heard from some younger members of the caucus in their 30s and 40s that maybe it's time for more of a generational change. They point to the change in leadership in the House with Leader Jeffries there now, but they also point to the fact that Nancy Pelosi still exerts a lot of influence and a lot of power, and they say that same change hasn't happened in the Senate. Do you think that it should?
Well, it's just natural. I don't know about Nancy. Still has a lot. She has power because she's a great intellect and has an incredible record of public service. I mean, she's not the Democratic leader. The top 3 leaders, one from Massachusetts, one from New York, one from California. That may be a problem. I like all 3 of them. But the problem, in part, is we are seen in places like Ohio and Western PA and Michigan and Wisconsin as probably too much of a bicoastal party. And every generation.
That's not reflected in the leadership.
Yeah, every generation. I'm not critical of any one of them in this case, but every generation you lose an election. People say we need new leadership.
Yeah.
I understand that. I expect that. But it's not just new leadership, and it's not just leadership, it's who's on your side.
Can I ask you, because as we sit here today, Matt Gaetz has now withdrawn his nomination to serve as Attorney General for the incoming Trump administration. Do you believe all the other nominees will be confirmed?
You know what? I'm not there anymore, so I don't even have to think about what's going to happen or predict. But let me say this: I would assume probably one more goes down or two because they're pretty extreme.
And you said you're going to stay in the arena. There's going to be a special election for J.D. Vance's seat when he becomes vice president. Will you run?
I have no idea at this point. I've not made a decision. I'm going to stay in the arena one way or another. It might be elective office. It might be shows like this that maybe you only have me on because you think I'm going to run. Maybe you have me on because I maybe have something to say. I don't know. But I'm going to continue to speak out.
We always love to have you on. We hope
right,
you'll come
thank you.
back soon. Democratic Senator from Ohio, Sherrod Brown, thank you for being here.
Sure, thanks.